Greetings and welcome to the 8th lecture of the Nanomaterials module, which is devoted for the second year students at the Department of Medical Physics at Al-karkh University of Science. This lecture focuses on drug delivery, which is the part of the applications of nanotechnology and nanomaterials of this module. This module has started by reviewing fundamentals of materials science, and then by discussing the origin of materials properties, and then we got to the effect of nanoscale technology on these properties, and now we are at the part of the applications of nanomaterials and nanotechnology, especially with a special focus on medical and biological applications. So if you are watching this lecture, you need a bit of background in physics and in material science, and not so much background in biology. It will be more of physics based or a physics theme lecture discussing the materials, more focused on the materials rather than the biological effect of or the biological side of drug delivery. So I'll be aiming to review some of the issues that we have with the current and conventional drug intake, the way we take drugs in our normal routine now, and then we discuss how nanotechnology can resolve these issues, and then we'll go into discussing the main types of nanoparticles that are thought or predicted to be that are possible to be used in drug delivery, and the main types or the most common types of release mechanisms, and then we will go into discussing some of the treatments that have been using nanotechnology or nano-based drug delivery. By the end of this lecture, I hope that you will have the ability, or you will get a basic understanding of the main issues with drug delivery, and then you will be able to highlight how nanotechnology can benefit such process, and then I'm hoping that we'll be able in future to identify and compare nanoparticles nominated for drug delivery. I can't get away from remembering or thinking about the old famous movie of The Fantastic Voyage when I think about drug delivery. And if you are familiar with this movie or not, this movie was shown first or released in the 50s, I think, or the 60s. It was very famous, and it really changed the perspective of many people about what's happening inside our bodies. And it shows a wild imagination for how we for the future of medicine. But there is a kind of a tricky or a wild idea of shrinking a submarine into a nanoscale or into the biological scale, and this submarine to be injected in the body of a famous scientist, enabling his fellow doctors for treating him from some kind of clot or something like that. And the movie shows the journey inside the human body using this submarine, and going to many situations with difficulties and life-endangering situations. And so I can't get away from thinking about this movie when I talk about drug delivery, because it shows our old ideas about how can we improve treatment. The issue with the physics of The Fantastic Voyage is the basic idea of this movie is that we're shrinking a human size, a human of our size to the nanoscale size through a process, which is kind of not accurate or not possible, because there is no possible way to do shrink matter into from this scale by this amount. There is no way to do that. and this process should involve destroying atoms or shrinking atoms to be closer to each other, but even with that we can't get to this kind of possibility. That's why the shrinking humans to the nanoscale, it's not possible. But they always have the phrase of the physics of the fantastic voyage is not real physics. Real physics, I like this. I think Feynman brushed on this idea in a way of saying that we could, improve or fabricate materials or use nanotechnology without violating any physical laws. And you can read this quote in both sides. It shouldn't be an attempt to violate physical laws, and working on nano does not violate any physical laws. So can we do this drug delivery or use nanotechnology or use materials at the nanoscale and for our benefit into drug delivery? Yes, we can. We have many options to use materials that are at the nanoscale and they're available in nature for drug delivery. I'm not saying we can use these materials precisely or these organisms precisely, but we can learn from them how to go into the nanoscale and use that for our benefit into transportation of drugs inside the human body. So to start over, drugs are, as you all know or you are familiar with them, they are the medications or the substances we take to heal or to provide some support to the human body to fight any kind of health problem or like viruses or bacterial infections. But the current the main focus or the main parts of the drug intake are we are taking it for a reason, and there is a target that we want this drug to be delivered to, and there is a release of medical substances into the body, and the aim of the drug delivery systems should be always aiming for targeted delivery and controlled release of therapeutic agents. And we have come across way into improving that in terms of the size of or the dose of the medications or the intake of these medications, and this became possible with the help of biomedical engineers who helped to improve our understanding and our utilization of drugs. And they improved our understanding for the physiological barriers inside the human body, and that are prohibiting or slowing down the transport of drugs inside the body, and how we move drugs to the targeted cells and tissues. And this is a very tricky part, the amount of the medication and the frequency of taking the medication is a very tricky process. It's important for if we are looking, to have speed recovery. But with this famous graph that shows how critical is the drug intake, because we are working between two important limits. The lower one, which is the lowest amount to give the body the resistance for a certain issue or disease, and the higher limit, which is shows the risk of major side effects. And we always work in between these two limits, and sometimes we kind of stuck into a certain timeline for dose and for drug intake that sometimes it's not optimum for healing. And as we know, or as you are aware, that many drugs have unacceptable side effects because they interact with other healthy issues, and that's one of the main issues with the current drug intake, that it affects the whole body almost, and not only the targeted tissue or the targeted organ. And these interactions not only affect healthy parts or healthy organs, but it also limits our ability to provide the optimal medication for many diseases, and special diseases that require speed decision and speed medication. Fast medication, and like cancer and infectious diseases, and especially with cancer, we go to people who are going into chemotherapy. They suffer from many side effects, really major side effects, because of the chemotherapy that almost affect most of the organs inside the body, which varies from hair loss to pains and rashes and so on and so forth. So if we're looking to improve that, we should always have systems aiming to improving or controlling the rate at which the drug is released, and controlling the location in the body where it is released. It's a very important parameter that drug delivery system should always aim to control. At this point, nanotechnology can help by providing alternative for materials that can improve this drug delivery process by using nanomaterials or using techniques at the nanoscale. And before going into other parts of the lecture, it's important to introduce the concept of the nanomedicine, which is a branch of medicine that applies the knowledge and tools of nanotechnology to the prevention and treatment of diseases. So, what are the main issues with current modes? I think we have some obvious issues, and we have some other specific issues. The poor water solubility, so you take a lot of medication and not all of them dissolve in water inside your body, and that limits your intake of them, and some of them go out of the body in the same way, they without giving any benefit to the healing process. We have almost no targeting capability with these kind of medications. We take a lot of amount of these medications, and they affect the whole body, even the healthy tissues and organs. And the distribution is non-specific. It goes for all the parts, as I said. And I like to use this example. It's like when this non-specific distribution, if we want to provide an image that shows how wrong is this process, is like we're having 20 or more people, and one of them is ill, and the way we do it now with the current drug delivery, the way we take the pills and injections, is like we are giving for the whole 20 or 30 people the medication, and we only need to give it to one. So this is a waste of amount of medication, and we are giving medications which are chemical substances, they are not always required to the human body, and we're giving them to healthy ones just because we want to target only one of them. This is not the best solution or the best way to heal someone, or if we move over from this image, to heal an organ or a tissue inside the body. The increase we are, because we taking a lot of amounts and with frequent doses, and not using all of them, we are leaving some chemical substances inside the body, or providing chemical substances inside the body that are not required. We are creating a systematic toxicity, and all of these lead to low therapeutic index. How nanotechnology is going to benefit such process? Well, We did study in this module the effect of nanotechnology on material properties, and one of the um, improvements, or in this case is an improvement, is that nanotechnology improved the solubility of materials, and now in this case is improving the solubility of drugs. We have drugs that are more dissolve easier with water, and we're providing site-specific targeting. So there is a we're only targeting unhealthy tissues, or and we're prolonging there because we are circulating these drugs by the nanomaterial. We are increasing their half-life. We are increasing their circulation time inside the body, and we also protecting these drugs from the biological environment. And sometimes with the nanoparticle, we can benefit that when the nanoparticle is circulating or encompassing the drug, we can get more benefits from this nanoparticle by using it to track or to learn more about the body. And that's why we say it's combining therapeutic and diagnostic modalities into the one agent. So the same particle is a nanoparticle circulating a drug. We're using it to transport and deliver the drug, and at the same time we're using it for diagnostic. And there are many options we have at the moment, and the most famous ones are shown in the picture. These are the most studied ones, and probably there will be more in future. The common thing between these particles are they are all in the nanometer size, but they come from different kind of materials, different kind of composing elements, and they have we can have variety of shapes for them, which increases our options. And we can also attach to their surfaces parts that help their movement, and that help us to track this movement and to use it for diagnosis. So I did some survey about the most common or the most studied materials for drug delivery, and I brought some examples. There are a lot of options, there are a lot of materials, but the most studied ones, if you like, are for example, we have the protein drug conjugates, which is a class of drug deliverers. This depends, or these conjugates, they have proteins that are conjugated with the drug molecules to create a one system that we can use we can use this conjugate to carry the drug to the targeted organ and then release it there. And why what's the benefit of this? We don't have a lot of circulation, but there is an advantage of this, is that the small size of these conjugates is around tens of nanometers. Liposomes are the most common ones. They are most studied, and I think they have been used in reality for drug delivery. They are mainly spherical vessels consisting of a lipid bilayer. Their size is between 50 to 500 nanometers. You can create liposomes in lab. It's a spontaneous process. You can create it by benefiting from the interaction between the water molecules and the amphiphilic lipid molecules. We can have selective encapsulating for these liposomes, and they have been around. They have been studied since the 60s, and they have been successfully translated into medication and into treatment in the clinics. The other type is the polymer nanoparticles, which are mainly composed of polymer materials in chains circulating the drug. They are one of the most studied carrier systems for drug delivery. Um, the main why they are most studied, because this is a very favorable, the polymer is very favorable because we have many options to use different kind of polymers, and they have other properties like their molecular weight. They are typically light, they have hydrophobicity and biodegradability, and we can tune these properties. We can bring different polymers with different kind of set of properties, and we can use them to create new functions for these kind of systems. The fabrication is straightforward in the lab, and the process of encapsulating the drug is relatively easier than other types of nanoparticles, and is very efficient. Is the encapsulation protects the drug throughout the transportation process. The other type is the polymer lipid hybrid nanoparticles. It takes advantage of both liposomes and polymer nanoparticles. So we have the liposome and the polymer, and they have high yields of drug encapsulation, and they are very efficient in the controlled in the drug release. They're very efficient they provide us with high control of and precise control of the drug release, and they are very efficient in targeting the tissues that we are aiming at. They are mainly sub 100 nanometers in size, and we can create them. It's possible to create them through the combination of self-assembly and precipitation. Inorganic nanoparticles, they are very important because because of many properties. They have wide variety of nanoparticles, as we will list them in the next slide. We can be very precise in creating the size and shape we like, and they have excellent physiochemical properties that are compatible with the mission we are creating for, and they have multifunctionality. Most widely used inorganic nanoparticles include mesoporous silicon nanoparticles, carbon-based nanostructures like fullerenes, nanotubes, and graphene, and we have noble metals like gold, and we have porous silicon and hydroxyapatite. A variety of nanoparticles and variety of properties. The only issue is that we kind of need to look for the most look for a way to make them biocompatible with the human organs. Before going into examples of treatments depending on nanoparticles or nanoscale based drug delivery, it's important to know that the delivery of drugs to the targeted tissue, we have three parts. We have to equip the drug into the nanoparticle, and then we have to transport it inside the human body through any circulation system we have or we choose. Are we compatible with our objective? And then we should have a working and controlled and precise release mechanism that releases the drug when we get to the targeted tissue. And in terms of release mechanisms, we have we have a couple of mechanisms that are mainly can be categorized into sustained release, where we have a predetermined rate of drug release over an extended period of time, or we have a stimuli responsive, which we in this way we have an onset of applying the stimuli on the nanoparticle that enables the nanoparticle to release the drug. And these can vary between pH sensitive, whether to increase this pH and to release or to decrease it. Enzyme sensitive, where we have certain types of enzymes, or thermoresponsive by varying the temperature, or photosensitive using laser or visible or ultraviolet light. I'm not sure about visible, but lasers mainly. These kind of the release mechanisms are there are many experiments on this, and you can look the references at the end to look for more data on this. I don't want my students to go into details in these release mechanisms. I just want them to know there are mechanisms, and these are the most studied ones. So for applications of drug delivery, we have the cancer treatment, which is the most aimed at one because it's so fatal to the humanity. And one of the issues, or one of the characteristics of cancer, is that the molecules accumulate at the tumor issues more than the normal tissue, the tumor tissue, more than the normal tissue. And this is there is an important reason that we have to familiarize ourselves with, although it's kind of sometimes controversial, is because tumors have a great oxygen demand, and they require fast generation of blood vessels around the tumor, and this is kind of alarm us about the location of the tumor, and leads to nanoparticles going to that location. These blood vessels, are the created ones, are abnormal. They have pores, and these pores are in the size that we can or they can allow for nanoscale molecules to penetrate or to go through these pores inside the tumor tissue. And this is kind of this kind of treatment has been used in many nanoparticles were being used, and but they have many objectives, whether therapeutic or diagnostic, and these nanoparticles could be delivered through the same carrier to enable combination therapy with the potential to overcome multi-drug resistance. And at the same time, we have a real-time readout on the treatment efficacy. And as I said, these pores in the tumor tissue allow the nanoparticles to penetrate or to permeate through the and to release drugs. And the other kind of treatment is the treatment of heart diseases. Inflammatory tissues or vessels have the same kind of properties for similar to tumors. They always have this oxygen demand that notify us about the location, and they one of the medications is used for heart diseases is statins, and this is a very critical medication. It is very dose dependent, and it has major side effects, and using drug delivery for this medication can be very helpful in reducing these side effects and reducing the toxicity of this medication to other cells. The last kind of treatment that I have today is the use of drug delivery, nanoscale based drug delivery for infection treatment, which is also being applied at the moment to treat infections, especially with the current or the recent trend of viruses and bacteria that are kind of showing signs of drug resistance, and using nanoscale based drug delivery can help beat these types of viruses and bacteria. So these are the main references I used for today's lecture. I hope you had a broad idea about drug delivery in terms of the nano technology and nanomaterials role in these in this process, and hopefully you have something beneficial from this lecture. If you have any comments or any questions, please use the comment section, and thank you.